Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's Top Club. And I think we have a topic that's a little bit timely for some of you. I've been told that you've been involved in some experiments with oh, cause and effect. Ta-da! Cause and effect. Two of the things that make the world go around. Every cause has an effect. Everything you do has a consequence. So we're going to take a look at that today. Not just in terms of the cause and effect, but some other things that happen with cause and effect, because not everything you do really has the effect that you want, does it? Now, life is full of surprises, and this is a little example on how life can have surprises. Like you managed to get back in school again. That was a surprise. Wonder how long it'll last. Hopefully a long time. It's good to be back in school. I hope. Well, I would have liked to have been back in school, but I never was out of school, so I don't know what it's like to go back to school. And I'm going to start by showing us a little bit of stuff on cause and effect. That's right, cause and effect. Ta-da! Whoops. There we go. Cause and effect. I pushed the button on my mouse, and it makes this screen pop up so you can see it. Wow, ain't that cool? All right. What do we have when we have cause and effect? Well, here's some examples of cause and effect. We received several inches of snow. School was canceled. 7 inches I have down here, but in this county, if you see a snowflake fly outside the window, it's likely that school will be canceled. He never brushes his teeth. He has a lot of cavities. For the most part, that's true. If you don't take care of your teeth, you end up not having teeth, which is not cool at all. She broke her leg and the doctor put it in a cast. Well, that's when you have a doctor who can put it in a cast. What if you didn't? I flipped on the light switch and the lights went on, except for about 2 weeks ago when nobody could flick any switches and have any lights go on because there wasn't any power to make the lights work. The electrical circuits were shut down for quite a while. My car's out of gas. My car doesn't run. A lot of these are like duh kind of things we take for granted. You know, like I think some of you are involved in those little domino experiments or whatever. You push one down and all of them are supposed to go down in a row, no matter how strangely you have it set up. Yeah, it's a cause and effect. I make the domino fall and the others will fall in proportion. But does this really, like I say, always work the way it's supposed to? Is cause and effect always cause and effect? I'm going to throw two terms at you. And I don't want this to be like school, but these are the words that the fancy social scientist people have chosen to use for these. And they're called manifest and latent functions. Now, if you really want to get smart at dinner tonight or when you're hanging around with your parents or maybe some older siblings of that who may not know this already, you could throw out the words manifest and latent functions. Makes it sound really cool and smart and everything. Nothing like big words to throw around to make people think that you're smart. That's how come some of us got PhDs, because we used big words and we made everybody think we were smart when actually, who knows? I don't want to say I was dumb as a rock, but I don't know. Some rocks are giving me a run for their money when I was younger. Manifest function is what you set out to do. Now, this is like our cause and effect thing. You know, I made my dominoes so they'll all fall down the way they're supposed to fall down. I spaced them all the right way. You know, I didn't know that the cat was going to run through them when I actually started the experiment, which changes the whole experiment because something came in to the cause and effect of things that changed the outcome. Here's a good one. An example here I have. I went to Walmart to buy a fishing license. Yeah, when you get to be older, you got to buy a fishing license. They don't give you a free one. Otherwise, the game warden comes and gives you a fine. If and it's really interesting how you can be in the most remote place in the world, and the game warden will hunt you down. So I went to Walmart to buy a fishing license, and I got into Walmart, and the manifest function that I went for quickly changed when I saw some really cool new fishing pole. I had to buy one. I mean, the whole idea to go to Walmart is to make you buy things you didn't intend to buy when you went there. So I ended up with a new fishing pole, a really cool new tackle box, and a new cooler to keep my drinks cool when I was out fishing. So the latent function of what I set out to do, the unexpected consequences of my actions, was to buy a whole bunch of stuff I really didn't need. And we'll get back to this, and we'll try to get some examples of how latent functions come into play in everybody's lives all the time. But first, let's set an example of a really good manifest latent function scenario, and it's very timely because I think it's going to happen the day you watch this. I think you watch this on Wednesdays, and that is St. Patrick's Day. Arr. Oh no, I'm a pirate. No, I can't be a pirate. How does an Irish person sound? No, that's some, I don't know what that was, but if I could do an Irish accent, I would be saying, here we have St. Patrick. St. Patrick's Day. That's a little better. Yeah, St. Patrick, the guy we celebrate all the time, and basically he's the most important person who. Okay, now I'm sounding like Chekhov from Star Trek. The most important person who probably ever lived in Ireland. Very, very influential. Excuse me. I was a latent function of having a cracker before I started this, trying to get what was left of it to clear my throat. All right, St. Patrick, there he is. Everybody knows what St. Patrick did, right? What was the biggest thing he did? Do you remember? Let's see on the next slide. Well, sorry, St. Patrick. I thought that we've gotten you more fame than that, but yeah, supposedly he drove all the snakes out of Ireland, made him his fame and fortune. But I'll tell you what, St. Patrick never ever thought that his thing of driving snakes out of Ireland was going to make him a worldwide celebrity every March, to the point where people would actually dress up in little green outfits with funky little green hats and drink green milkshakes from McDonald's and all that kind of stuff, all the way from the United States to China. I mean, St. Patrick's Day is a worldwide celebration. Why? Well, I hate to kind of throw some other things into the equation, but oh no, there never were any snakes in Ireland. That's right. There were never any snakes in Ireland. Back at the time when Ireland separated from England and became an island, it was too cold for snakes to live on Ireland. So they never went. So when St. Patrick got to Ireland, there weren't any snakes. Well, I guess the people thought a good way of trying to explain why there weren't any snakes in Ireland was because St. Patrick went to Ireland or whatever to get the snakes out of there. Then comes the next part of the whole thing. St. Patrick wasn't even Irish. That's right. He wasn't even an Irishman. He's the most famous guy in Ireland. He never was an Irishman. St. Patrick was a slave who was brought in service to Ireland from England back at the end of the Roman times. Wow. Imagine that. A Roman Britain slave sent to Ireland. Well, he converted to Christianity, and when he went back to England, he decided he wasn't going to go back to Ireland because there weren't any churches there. And he went back for the primary reason of converting the Irish pagans to Christianity. You know what? We're not even sure his name was Patrick. I'm not sure what his name was. So, St. Patrick wasn't Irish. He didn't drive any snakes out of Ireland. He certainly had nothing to do with leprechauns or little green people running around. They do say that he did come up with the idea of the four-leaf clover being a religious symbol. Three is a religious symbol. You add four to it, it's got to be more religious. So yeah, it was a sign of a miraculous thing to find a four-leaf clover. But why? I mean, the cause and effect that he hoped was his cause was to go to Ireland and convert it to Christianity, which in fact he did. But the manifest functions of what he did was added to the other functions later on, to the point where the latent functions became more of a reality than the manifest function of why he went there. So you wonder what St. Patrick would be doing now if he knew about this. You know, who knows? So on St. Patrick's Day, just remember, who he really was and what he really tried to do, and how things have changed. How the latent functions basically took over and changed stuff for him. All right, let me get off this and get back to me again. Oh, what a scary sight. Just looking at me can drive all the snakes out of Kentucky. Maybe that's why I don't have any in my yard. Well, how do manifest and latent functions happen in your life? You just never know what you're going to do is going to turn out to be the way you want it to be. There's not a cause and effect in life. If there was, then we could plan things. Now, I'm going to go to college to become a scientist. You might get into college and get out of college and find out there's no jobs for your field at the time. So you have to become something else. And you might become a technician. You might become a school teacher. You might become whatever. And that's going to change the trajectory of your life. You might decide to go to a dance somebody and find somebody at the dance who you want to dance with, and find out that person you want to dance with really doesn't want to dance with you, and you wind up with somebody else who turns out to be just perfect for you. The manifest function was going to the dance to find one particular person. The latent function is that you found somebody else. Or you go to a car dealer, I want to buy that particular car. And when you guys are a little bit older and can afford to buy a car, and if you can buy a car that you want to buy, you go check it out. Well, you get there and you find that there's another car in a perfect color, and that you love the color, and that it looks a bit more sporty than the one you're looking at, and you wind up coming off the lot with another car. The dominoes really rarely always hit exactly the way you want them to in lifetime. And the same thing with, acts of how you act when you go somewhere and do something. Your actions have a cause and effect result on everything. And sometimes a minor act, a joke, or some prank you might pull on somebody could have something other than the manifest function was to get everybody around to laugh. It could have a latent function of doing some person who the prank was being pulled on, maybe a lifetime of hurt. That's why bullying is such a bad thing. It may start out as a simple joke, but the consequences of anything go beyond us. It's almost like when we start something, we kind of like give birth to it. I mean, it begins our idea. Well, let's pull back for a second and think of something you may have written for school. You may have written a story to turn in as a subject for one of your classes. And excuse me again, you might find that the meaning of the story is not what other people get out of it. Everybody interprets it in a different way. So your cause and effect of writing a story that you wanted people to share and enjoy turns out to be something they may have enjoyed, but for a totally different reason. And that would be the latent function of that whole thing. When you guys finished your stuff for our little book for this class, other people may read your poems and look at your pictures or whatever you've written and interpret it a little bit different than the way you interpret it. And I'm getting a little paranoid about this hand behind my head because it looks big enough like I'm in the Twilight Zone episode and I could just grab it and rip my head off my shoulders. I hope that's not going to be a latent function of using this slide for this show. Well, so I hope you get the idea about manifested latent functions and how life can never be totally as certain as you plan it to be. It's always unexpected, and I think maybe that's one of the coolest things about about being alive and enjoying life is that there's always going to be turns in the road. There's always going to be twists and changes and whatever comes down the way, because it keeps things exciting. If life was so predictable that we did everything we did and expected to get everything back that we wanted, it just wouldn't be as much fun. So maybe for this week, you could come up with some ideas about cause and effect, or mostly manifest and latent functions. Let's do that. Think of something that you set out to do and what the outcome was. Was it exactly what you thought? Do you even know about all the different latent functions that came out of your action? Who knows? Try to think of one and then try to think of all the kind of unexpected cool things that happened out of it, or some of the uncool things that may have happened from it, and jot that down for me. I'd really, really enjoy reading that. And we'll say that's a good thing to do. All right. Okay, so that's it for cause and effect. And we will see you next week with something else that I hope to present, and I hope it comes out the right way, because who knows? You may interpret it different than what I say. And that's the fun of being a teacher, too. Cause and effect. All right, guys, you take good care of yourselves, and we'll shout out at you next week.